is Pixel Dan. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I have another very special interview for you guys. Joining me today is Mr. Todd McFarlane. How's it going, Todd?
Good. Thanks for having me today, Dan. I appreciate it, bud.
Oh man, we appreciate you being here and spending some time to talk shop with us. It's really exciting to have you here. So I want to go and start off by just asking how things have been going in this weird new world we've been living in.
This is an interesting times where all 8 billion people on the planet are dealing with the same subject matter, and that never happens, right? We all have sort of our difference of what books we like and music we like and fashions and what sports teams we root for. Everybody, what kind of food is our favorite? So we all differentiate our topic. This one is interesting to me, that you could parachute us onto any place pretty much on the planet and they're doing the exact same thing, right? Which is a weird concept, because it's hard enough to get your head wrapped around that 10 miles away they're doing the same thing. So
yeah, absolutely.
But if you drop me off in Bosnia, they'd be doing the same thing. It's interesting. So
it's real wild, right?
And it's having obviously an impact on everybody's life, and some of it in a negative fashion, to the extreme. Obviously, we've seen the death count, but in terms of certain businesses are getting hit hard. I mean, the comic book industry is completely shut down right now. I mean, there's no new comic book coming out. Hollywood, they're shut down. And there's all in restaurants and stuff. I mean, there are entire industries that are just out of business right now, and we're all just hoping that it doesn't go 7, 8, 10, 12, 15 months, because nobody knows what that means, right? Because then that means that the buying habits and the way we conduct business is going to modify itself. It's going to happen anyways. I mean, the reality is, let's just talk about something that's near and dear to our heart, something like a comic book convention. That may be one of the last remnants to get back to normality. And the reason may be because, even if they open up stuff, you go, oh, okay, I'll go outside and that's good. Okay. And some people go, well, I'll go to the store. Okay. Well, I'll go to a restaurant as long as there's, 6 feet between me. Oh, okay. Well, I even go to a theater because now there's only one person on either side, or they're doing every other seat or something like that. But a convention, that's like thousands of people you walk by in an hour, right? And so if there's going to be this sort of comfort zone for everybody, it seems like massive crowded places like rock concerts and stuff like that may be some of the places that come back last, because you got to say, okay, I'm completely over this because I'm going into the mosh pit. So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, San Diego Comic-Con, talk about that. I mean, that's a place where you're shoulder to shoulder with people for 5 days straight. There's no way around not rubbing into people, and
so we can sit our comic books, right, and we'll be able to do it. It just that. So now the question is, how do we scratch the itch of people wanting to go to shows and meet some of their favorite creators and stuff like that, which is, part of the package of why we do a lot of stuff. It's kind of fun. I don't know. We're gonna have to figure out what some of those alternate ways are, or we just got to wait it out until everybody's completely comfortable to go back to doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess it was only 2 months ago, but it feels like a lifetime ago. But we were just at New York Toy Fair, and we just had a conversation there, and it's really amazing.
About a month later, it was a hospital.
I know.
To a hospital, Javits Center. Boom. Yep.
It's insane. It's insane to look back at that. But I don't know. So I thought I'd kind of touch base with you just since we talked last at Toy Fair and kind of see how things are going. And you're talking about how this is affecting everything. Can you speak to how McFarlane Toys is making adjustments with all of this? Is there delays or anything like that?
On a simple business front, we sent everybody home way over a month ago, right, to just sort of do their thing. I mean, luckily, the good thing about comic books and toys, the two businesses that I spend most of my time in, is that you can do them from a distance. Comic books have historically been done from a distance, right? I mean, that's all we do is sit in rooms by ourselves and create. So especially comic books. So there's nothing new to what's happening here. We're built for quarantine. The toys, there's obviously more of a collaborative effort that we do, and I had my sculptors and my bullpen, if you will, just outside my office. So it was, good to be able to just walk out and give them the notes and talk about stuff and do it in real time. But we're still able to do that. As a matter of fact, I was doing it just before I got on your show, where they were sending me the latest sculpts and the latest revisions, and then I just make my notes or I do a draw over, and then I send it back to them. Again, not perfect. It's way better if you're sort of standing there and you can point to it, or act it out.
Sure.
I want the hands to look like this.
Yeah.
But
Nice.
we're fortunate, way more so than a lot of other industries, that can continue to create with not much of a slowdown. The bigger piece of the puzzle comes, well, is anybody buying it, right? Because now you have stores that are, not letting people in, and that's sort of the sales part of it. We can make it, but is anybody ordering it? And so right now, interestingly enough, the toy part of business hasn't radically changed that much. We had an initial impact at the factories, as you might imagine, our factories over in China, because they were some of the first to get hard hit. But that they've sort of come back, and although it's not 100% in terms of efficiency where they were, they're still they're able to get us into a spot where we can still meet demand. So as far as we're concerned, all those cool toys we've been making are still coming out for Christmas.
Excellent. That's really, really cool to hear. Well, with that in mind, I thought it'd be cool to kind of touch base on some of the things that we talked about at Toy Fair, some of the reveals, and maybe just kind of go through some of the different lines and see what answers you've got for us. So why don't we start with DC Multiverse, since that's sort of one of the big new ones you guys are doing with the DC line.
Yeah.
And when we talked at Toy Fair, you kind of explained to me your thought process behind the DC line. There's been so many.
It's all I just want to see if you were a sucker and you'd buy it all. So.
Oh, okay. Well, good. I'm glad I'm getting to the bottom of all this.
Yeah.
Well, there's been so many DC toy lines out there, what with Mattel putting out their line, DC Direct. So can you maybe kind of speak on what your approach is to kind of differentiate your product from everything that's come before to keep people interested in buying DC toys?
Well, what I'm hoping for, and again, because I want to do something, I have to be cognizant every waking second. I don't own these characters. I don't own these brands, and so I need approval from the good people at Warner Brothers. That's a big entity, because these again, their characters are billion-dollar assets, right? Just like anything else, they're literally their portfolio. It's their investment. And they want to make sure that everybody's doing right by those characters and those investments. So for me, at the beginning, and I've said it before, was just trying to build up their confidence and show them what I think we're capable of delivering out into the marketplace, what maybe even the expectation is of what we should be delivering out in the marketplace. And hopefully over time, if I can show them the data and build their confidence, then they may sort of allow me to be just a little crazier than I already am. Here's what all this means in a nutshell. I'll just give it to you. It means that I don't think that between DC Direct and McFarlane Toys and Spin Master, and we're all there someplace, and in some cases Spin Master and I are right next to each other, I don't think we should be doing a lot of duplicate stuff, right? I mean, understand there's scale and there's price points, but I think we should be trying to give as much variety to the potential consumer, and at as many different price points as possible, and maybe even some different scales, and just let the consumer decide what it is that makes the most sense for them, all the way from a 6-year-old kid and their parents all the way up to maybe a 45-year-old geek, right? So I think all of it should be at the ready for them to say, oh, that figure at that price point makes the most sense for me personally, for our family, personally, for our budget, and just for our enjoyment level. And if you, and I mean, think about it as a sort of a buffet, right? You go to a buffet, we've all been there, and there's like 20 items. You don't put all of them on your plate. You put the ones that you think you're going to enjoy the most, that make the most sense for you, right? Collecting, I think, is sort of the same mentality. There's all this stuff, and then we just sort of take home what we want, what we're going to enjoy. So for me, that means specifically, that means that I would like to lean on doing more figures that arguably have never been done before. Just nobody's ever made them.
Sure.
I think that will separate me from sort of the classic, the norms. It may be detrimental to other people because they'll go, hey, I don't know who that character is, or I don't know what that costume is, because I'm not a geek. So it's incumbent upon me to make sure that we're picking stuff that visually is appealing, whether you know the character or the comic book or not. It just looks good in plastic. So there's a chance that not only could I sell it to the geek who might know who the character is, I can sell it to a 7-year-old because he just goes, oh my God, Mama, look at that. That's awesome. And I would argue that what we did with what I dubbed simply the Superman in armor and the Batman in armor did exactly that.
Yeah.
They were big figures in a box that just felt like you were getting a lot of plastic. Those armors aren't well known, and in some cases you could argue they're completely obscure, but visually they look good in plastic on a shelf. And I think that the collector can go, oh my God, that looks cool. I collect Superman, but I don't have a Superman that looks like that. And then they get home and they take it out and they go, oh my gosh, it even got big giant wings on it. It even gets way bigger. Oh my gosh.
Right.
Which is cool. And then Batman, does the same thing. But to a 7-year-old kid, he's just walking by going, Mom, look at that Batman figure and look how big it is. And it's $20, man. Come on, Mom. My birthday's coming up next week or whatever. And there's two reasons why somebody might be sort of intrigued by the product. And so far, though, the figures that we've done that nobody's done before, and I would throw the Joker who laughs in there. They've been some of our better sellers, and I think it's because they're just nobody's seen them before, right?
Yeah, sure. I think I remember you telling me that at Toy Fair that Hellbat Batman and the Armored Superman specifically were like the two best sellers in the line so far.
They still are. So now the question is,
cool.
can I go and do stuff like that with sort of some of the quote unquote classic looks? Whether that's more armor stuff or if it's just doing a Batman in a style that you've not seen before, even though it's still Batman, right? And so you saw the White Knight Batman. It's still Batman for all intents and purposes, but it's got a slightly different look to it, so that it doesn't feel overly familiar, if you will. And I think there's a value in that, at least for what we're trying to do, because there's going to be plenty of the obvious look by other companies doing it, especially Spin Master. And I'm sure Spin Master doesn't want me to do stuff that looks like theirs any more than I want them to do stuff that looks like mine. So we can, and
Right.
Sometimes they're sitting next to each other on the shelf. So if they're doing one sort of flavor and I'm doing another flavor and they're together, then it's this big DC universe flavor and it feels like there's a presence to it. And then you just let people, like I said, take home what it is they think is going to be the best.
Sure. The buffet analogy that you just said is a really interesting one, because I almost look at what you've done with the DC line so far as sort of like this buffet, because you have all these different variations in there. You've got animated stuff in your line. You've got stuff like the armored Batman and everything. So is that something you think you guys will continue with, all these different aspects of the characters from different media?
Always that question, people ask these types of questions. The question always comes back to Sales will drive everything, right? So
Sure, of course.
let me turn my phone off. Come on, Todd.
Yeah, of course. No worries.
Oh, that was one of the bosses too. I'm gonna blow them off for you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. It depends on sales, and then even I think that there should be an adjustment to it. So in other words, if we were doing animation again, I think that Spin Master and even DC Direct are doing some pretty good stuff in the animation. So I don't know that there's be a big need for me to do what they're doing, but possibly if I go, hey, let me do my take on animation, right? Let me do a different animation look. Then I think that then will separate it so that there could be room for it to make sense on the shelf. But if it's just going to be more of the same, I think there's other people that are doing a good service to it already.
Sure. Okay. So that might even answer what my next question is, because I know you've done some of the movie stuff too, like the Wonder Woman figures are hitting now.
Yep.
But are you guys able or even interested in doing like past movies or even some of the DC television characters in action figure form?
The answer is yes, depending. And here's the depending.
Okay.
So let's get geeky here for a minute. So let's talk. Okay. So let's so
Of course.
let's say that somebody says, let's do a George Reeves Superman, right? Could we do a George Reeves Superman? Yes. Will he look cool? Yes.
Mhm.
Is there a demand for it in some place? Yes. Is that demand for that character in the Walmart toy aisle? I don't think so. I think it's in another place. And with stuff like .coms and with Kickstarters and crowdfunding and all of these kinds of things, I think there are other corners where those types of figures make more sense, right? A lot of the direct stuff goes to comic shops exclusively. So you just need to pick your outlets and not say that all this stuff that you're doing will necessarily have a wide appeal to it. And to be clear to everybody, George Reeves supersedes by a lot Christopher Reeves, right? So we're going even older at that point. So it's only going to appeal to a certain segment. But and then because of that, then you may have to charge a little bit more that breaks the model that you have already at the department stores. So how do you get there? I mean, and this is where the internet is the great equalizer. You can think about all these ideas and potentially do it and say, hey, maybe I'll do a 3 or 4 pack, and I'll take George Reeves, and I'll take Adam West, and I'll take Burt Ward, and then I'm trying to remember the actress that played Wonder Woman in the old show, and put the 4 of them in a 4-pack. Yeah,
Linda Carter.
Linda Carter, and put them in a 4-pack, and this is sort of like the old nostalgia TV show pack, right? Do I think that people would respond to it? Yeah, I do, but not in a giant wave enough to warrant that. Again, as a 4-pack box at one of the big department stores.
Okay, sure. So on those movie figures, there was one figure that you guys had on, I think it was on the back of the package. I've had a lot of people asking, Birds of Prey Harley Quinn. Is she still slated to come out?
We did her, and there was a bit of a production issue on her. So everybody just decided to just hold back. And so maybe if we can figure out that what went wrong in that one little portion of her body, because the face, can I tell you, the face was one of the best faces we've ever done, ever.
Awesome.
And so it was like, oh my gosh, this face is perfect. I mean, I don't say that about too many of my toys. This one was almost near perfect. So there was a weird oddity on the production on another part of it that just sort of took your eye away from sort of the face. So and I just decided to just hold. But maybe we can figure out the solution to it eventually come out.
Okay, very cool. I've had a lot of people asking about that one.
It's a good looking toy. It's a good looking toy.
Yeah, of course. Well, you guys did show off a bunch of new stuff for DC at Toy Fair, and it sounds like the line itself is doing well, especially with some of those unique characters. So I think we're all looking forward to seeing what you guys are going to do with the
Yeah, no, there's
license.
going to be more. There's going to be more coming, especially for Christmas. We've got a new wave of those ones that are got nice articulation, great detail, and lots just fun stuff to look at. Right?
Sure.
There's still going to be a lot of the core characters that everybody knows coming out from DC, but just in a visually fun fashion that maybe is slightly different than what you've seen before. Some of the characters, and then we'll have stuff that's a little bit close to the norm, but with a little bit of quote unquote McFarlane flavor to it, and then
Nice.
we'll just try and get as sort of as wacky and as I don't know. You know, somewhere along the line, I think that the reputation of our company, you know, we've earned our stripes, and I think the crowd expects us to show those stripes, right?
Hmm.
And so I think that's part of the learning process for everybody here is that there's, you know, if you say that McFarlane Toys is going to do your stuff, there's a bit of an expectation, and it's nice if I can meet it and or be able to do some of it, or in a best case scenario exceed it. And so those are the places there where the differentiating ourselves from some of the other stuff out there allows us to then do the McFarlane thing, because we're not trying to do the norms, if you will.
Sure, of course, of course. Awesome. All right. Well, I think we're going to move on from DC.
Okay.
So I've got just kind of a smattering of short questions, basically asking for, it looks like, status updates on a lot of your various lines. So I'm going to hit you with a bunch of them real quick. So Fortnite. You guys showed off a couple new things at Toy Fair. Is there more stuff planned beyond that? Any delays with the Fortnite stuff, or is it still going okay?
Yeah, I actually, as soon as I get off the phone here, we're having a conversation about it.
Oh,
So
awesome.
some of those, we haven't made final decisions on what that long term plan is, but we'll get back to you on that one.
Okay, sounds good. How about the status of Star Trek and Harry Potter? Are you guys still doing stuff with those licenses?
Yeah, surprisingly, the Star Trek didn't do that well for us. You know, and part of it is because we only had one or two. It wasn't like an entire product line. Sometimes those figures can get lost, right, on the
Sure,
shelf,
sure.
which could be a little frustrating. The Harry Potter, we're talking now about doing more, but it's interesting. Harry Potter has always been this brand that, like, you know, they don't really flock to figures, right? It's an interesting brand. You know,
Yeah,
what sells is a lot of the sort of accessories and side stuff, part of the world, and it's not necessarily, oh, I've got to have that character X. I think that there's obviously room for some of the creatures that are in the mythology that Ms. Rowling is sort of invented, and then you know, some other figures, but being very smart about what and who those figures are.
sure. Okay. Okay, so if we're talking about Mortal Kombat, the Mortal Kombat 11 toy line, I think the most recent figures you guys revealed were Kitana and Baraka. Are you guys still planning to do more Mortal Kombat?
Yeah, again, that goes back to the same thing I said earlier. As long as every time we put stuff out, it sells, then you can keep going, because obviously there are, you know, are hundreds of different looks
Sure.
and accessories and paint job of these characters that they've had in Mortal Kombat, obviously, for decades. So I
Hmm.
mean, I know what they built for Spawn. It's literally hundreds of different variations. So I could just do Spawns for Mortal Kombat for 20 years practically. So we'll continue to put them out. No, it's true, but they have that for all their character. So the answer is, like, yeah, again, you know, there's a demand that people want to put up on the shelf, and if not, then sometimes here's the thing that's interesting, and I'm sure we'll get a little bit to the Kickstarter, is that just because
Yes.
the retailer can't find the room for something doesn't mean that you can't sell it, right? And because they have certain models where they have to have programs, and doing a one-off here or a cool figure here, or a 12-inch version of that there. Sometimes their business model isn't built for it, and it's okay because they're making $1 billion. So they don't need to adjust to what we're doing. So you just need to go and find those other outlets that may be in sort of non-traditional places that still will get you enough business that you can just keep doing more geeky stuff.
Cool. So one of the other lines that is really exciting, I think, to a lot of people that you guys revealed at Toy Fair is the Warhammer 40K line. Yeah. How deep do you guys think you'll go with a line like that?
We talked about it. So if Mortal Kombat's deep, then this thing is like an ocean, right? I mean, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And those are sometimes the fun license to have, because if you can find your space, your groove of getting people interested, there's no lack of characters that you can put out there, right? I mean, it literally is endless. You'll go to your grave making them. It just when you come out a little bit slow, it's like, where do you put it so people even know that it exists and they can get excited about it? And that becomes sort of the harder task at that point, because obviously everybody knows something like Warhammer and or Star Trek, but if you're only doing like one figure here, one figure there, it's easy for that figure to get lost in the sea of toys that are out in the marketplace.
Sure. Okay, so are there any licenses specifically that you are interested in doing or that you might be eyeballing that you could talk about?
Well, I'm trying to
anything that you'd like to make toys of?
I'm trying to think what's the last couple that we had meaningful conversations. We've got probably 3 or 4 sort of fish on the line right now. Obviously, I don't know that I'd say that any of them are triple A, because that's sort of, there's only about 3 or 4 of those, and Hasbro and Mattel usually have those ones. But there are brands that I think are suitable to a company our size and what we do, and the kind of detail that we put on them compared to maybe sort of the effort that other companies will put in, and what kind of prices they can charge at those levels. So yeah, I think like I said, there's 3 or 4 we're on the cusp of signing right now. And I'm trying to think if there's any what's our biggest tiger we're chasing.
I know I kind of put you on the spot with this. So
but again, let me just say that question you're at, we're constantly on the prowl. We're constantly hunting. There's never a day we're not looking. And then while we're looking, sometimes we get the phone call, and people, from a studio or video game or TV show or whatever it is, will phone us and say, "Hey, we got this new project coming up. Are you interested in doing any of it?" So, oh yeah, that's right. That triggered. There is one giant. There is one giant movie that we're talking about. So we'll see. We'll see if we land that. It just, as with Hollywood shutting down, there's a delay, and we were supposed to go into LA, and they were supposed to download us with all of it. We could see it and sort of get closer to the reality of saying, yeah, we're going to do all this. But the virus sort of put a stop on it, and people aren't comfortable with showing stuff over the internet. Because they've got a lot of money.
Of course.
There's a couple of those movies we're dealing with. Yep.
Okay, well, it's still exciting to know that you're always out there looking for something.
A couple big blockbusters. So, yeah.
Nice, very cool. Yeah. All right, well, hey, speaking of licensing, let's go the other way around. Yeah. Let's talk about your character, Spawn. Yeah. Is there ever a time that you might consider, would you ever license Spawn out to companies that are more for the non-competitive specialized stuff? And I'm thinking like Hot Toys for their 12-inch stuff, or statues.
Nope.
Okay. Understandable.
There's nothing that any of those companies can do that I couldn't if I want it. You want a 12-inch? I can make a 12-inch Spawn. You want a 15-inch statue? I can make a 15-inch statue. You want something that's
Gotcha.
made completely out of metal? I can make a metal toy. There's nothing that they're doing that I can't do, right? So the answer is no. The answer is no. I'm not gonna let a toy competitor make a toy of Spawn. So you want to make a T-shirt or hat? You want to make socks? You want to make furniture, gloves? Something I'm not making? Come. You want to put it on paper or plastic? I'm in the paper and plastic business, right? So I can do those. So the answer is no. So and will I do some of those high end stuff? Maybe in the future. I mean, again, we'll take a look at it. I really try to drive my company for the most part by not trying to do $300 items, $200 items. I like to do
Sure.
$20 items, and while I'm doing $20 items, I wish I could do it for 10, right? Because I remember what it was like
Right.
to be young and to not have money in my pocket, and so the farther I could stretch a dollar, the more important and the better it was for me, right? So most of my decision making, both in comic books and in toys, have always been based on remembering the 16, 17-year-old Todd, the college Todd, that basically had no money in his pocket. And so it was, every $5 was precious. And I think that that's true for a big portion of society. So I think value and quality at a reasonable price, I think matters. Does that mean that you can't go? Well, we sort of did it with the Kickstarter and it went crazy. So yes, there's a segment there, but you're not going to get 1 million people to support it. And I've always said I would rather have 1 million people give me $1 than to have 10 people give me 100,000. Both
Gotcha.
equations add up to $1 million, but in the $1 per person, at the end of the day, you've got 1 million people that know what your product is. They know what your product
Right.
is, and they
Right.
know what you do, and they can talk the gospel, and they're going to be your best commercial, right? Where if you've only got the 10, then you've got, elitists. You got 10 elitists that basically have something that nobody else can afford. So I let everybody else build the Lamborghinis. My job is to try and build a Cadillac and sell it at Ford prices. So
Cool. No, that's great. That's great. And honestly, I think this is a perfect way to transition into the Kickstarter that you've brought up a couple times. So why don't we go ahead and really start talking about that then? Because that's going on right now, right?
but yeah. Currently, I think there's 8 more days to it or something like that.
Few days, so
Um,
we're at the tail end, but this thing blew up, like you said. I mean, it met
yeah,
its goal the very first day within hours, right?
minutes.
That's
Minute.
amazing. That's
It took us
amazing.
we had a goal of 100,000, and it took 11 minutes. And then by a day and a half, we were at 1 million. Right. So it's like what? Like I thought our home run would be 500,000. I go, if we can get to 500,000, I think we'll have exceeded sort of our expectation. And then the million came pretty quickly, and it was like what? And even when we were at about 800,000, the Kickstarter guy goes, I think you guys can get to 1.5 million. And I'm like, well, I'm gonna start giving stuff away at 1 million because I'm not gonna start thinking about a number we never get to. And then fast forward, and now we're literally as we talk to right now, we probably passed 2.2 million. I don't know we're going to go much higher because again, I
Amazing.
think everybody jumped on at the front of it. I think we're about 100 backers away from breaking the record for the most backers for an action figure. I mean, we already own the record for Kickstarter for the cash brought in. And so it was shocking to me. I got to tell you, I thought we'd do okay. I didn't think we'd like this is a complete surprise to me. But
Yeah, it's
going back, what it means that you can now do maybe some cool geeky stuff that would work in different levels. So, for instance, like Batman and the Multiverse, right? I drew Batman years ago. I did a few issues of Batman Year Two, and some of the coolest images I drew that I think that people would like had big giant capes. I'm a big cape drawer,
right.
but I can't deliver those big giant capes in at Walmart and Target because they limit my box size, right? I mean, I have to conform to certain
Sure.
size of the box. But now you I can think about wow, I can do any shape, any size, and I'm not limited by somebody saying it can only be this. And then you just do it, and then you can offer it to people and see whether there's an appetite for it. And I think there would be. And so it allows us to come up with crazy ideas. It allows me to come up with more Spawn ideas, and it allows me to maybe take some of the license I already have and take some of the ideas that we probably would never get out normally and say, hey, I've got a venue that we might be able to get out and do some of that. And potentially, now that I've done, a crowdfunding for the first time, that then people go, oh my God, he's going to do it again. And so you build up a reputation. And his last one not only did pretty good for an action figure, at least at Kickstarter, it broke both records for cash and backers, right? So maybe we'll take a look at the next one, and it gives us venues, like I said, to do these crazy ideas that you and I or anybody else listening would think of, that you go, oh, wouldn't it be awesome if they could do this and this and that? And the answer is yes. Now the answer is yes. Where just so everybody understands, when I go to Walmart and Target, for the most part, the conversation starts with, can you keep it at $20? Can you keep it at $20? That's who our buyers are. That's what we want. That's the value we want. Can you keep it at 20? So it limits what you can and cannot do, because they're giving you a price point that you have to meet. You can reverse engineer when you crowdfund, or if I do it on my own website, where you just go, let's just do it and then price it second, right? And don't worry about what the price is going to be. Just make a cool toy that is going to resonate.
Sure. And that's great, because that was obviously one of the starting questions I was going to ask you. And we talked about this a little bit back at Toy Fair, but of course I saw a lot of people saying, well, why Kickstarter? Why would McFarlane need to go through Kickstarter? But I think it's obvious that the demand was there for this, right? It's obvious that people wanted this.
At some point, I'm going to give a business seminar, right? Like I don't need to do it. Here's what I did need. I'd never done a crowdfunding, so I don't know how that works for my business. Right. So I don't know if there's a value to my business, right? And my business is completely different than anybody else's in terms of what the product is and the size of it. So I'm being self-serving here. I've done big stores. I've done Walmart, Kmart, Target, Toys R Us. I've done that. I've done specialties. I've done comic shops. I've done Hot Topics and Virgin Records and all that other. I've done .coms. I sell to .coms and everything from small to big, which is Amazon. And I've sold through my own outlet, my own website. I just had never sold through a crowdfunding site. Do I need to do it? No, of course not. Could I have done it in those other places? Sure, I could have. It was just data collecting for me. Like, does this make sense? Is this make sense not only for me, for the product, and for the fan base? This venue, I don't know. We're not going to know until we try it. And so for me, I'm 25 plus years in the toy business, over 30 in the comic book business. Sometimes your curiosity should still be there, as to try and learn, to just so that you're educated, to see like what matters. So now all of a sudden I'm going, it doesn't make sense for these 25 toys that I'm making for Spawn, but maybe this one it will. It doesn't make sense for these 25 DC Multiverse toys, but maybe for this one it does, right? It doesn't make sense. Right. Oh my gosh, you know what? There's no way we're going to be able to do a McFarlane Dragons or a McFarlane Movie Maniac again as a one-off, but now there's an outlet for a one-off. There's an outlet for a one-off. Oh, cool. So, and we have data that it works. Oh, cool. What can we do better next time? What should we do? What should we continue to do? And what should we improve on next time? And so that's why I did it. So it's not out of a need. It's not because, I needed the cash or whatever. It was just me being a curious businessman and a curious creative person combined at the same time. And, along comes the coronavirus, and a lot of people are shutting down. And I go, well, I got two choices. I guess I can shut down with everybody, or I can engage. I think it's time to engage, not shut down. So
Sure. No, that's great. That really is great. And I think it's so cool that it's gone so well, and the support for the Kickstarter has been amazing. I think, even with the Mortal Kombat Spawn we talked about earlier, those seems like they were hard to find, like they were selling out. So I think it's to say that people have been ready for a new Spawn action figure or even a Spawn toy line. So I think this is awesome.
And the
So you think this will open
the thing that's interesting, if you read the comments, I think there's, I don't know, 6,000 comments now, 5,000 comments.
Oh, wow.
And I try to read them all. I answer a boatload of them. That there's a lot of good ideas from the fans. And at some point, you know, I just go, guys and gals, you know, I'm going to do as much as I can. But this figure isn't meant to be the answer to all solutions of action figures, right? It's meant to be a tribute to the comic book and the toy that came out in 1994 that literally started one of my companies. It's the flagship of image of one of my companies. And although I licensed that look to my comic company because we're doing it, I think it's a good time to have a comic book product out, given that we've shut down all comic books. And it's sort of a wink wink to, hey, our reputation was built on this first wave of toys, and this is the main guy from that first wave of toys. There's a bit of nostalgia here, a little bit of sort of retro chic, you know, that's cool. Okay, nothing wrong with a little bit of nostalgia here. It's all, you know, all the above, right? And I think I think there's a good value there. I think there's a good value. So.
Of course. And you talked about this kind of opening doors for possible other one-offs and stuff, but you've also talked a lot about, you know, sales and everything determining if there's going to be more. So do you think this will open the doors for more Spawn characters, more tributes to some of the other Spawn characters from the older lines?
Yeah, I think, I mean, obviously it's near impossible to ignore the success level. So
nice.
Will it begat other ideas? Yeah. Will those ideas necessarily be exactly what I just did? Not necessarily. You know, I mean, there's a wide range of things we're talking about. And the next thing maybe close could be something as simple as doing medieval Spawn with some cool armor and stuff.
Nice.
And
I was going to ask about him specifically.
But it could be something that it's like, no, let's just do a 3-pack of the best dragons we've ever made, right? Or something, some fantasy element, or let's do a little army man of every single Spawn that's ever existed through the comic book and the toy lines or whatever. I don't know. Just, I mean, this is the fun part here. You can just sort of let your mind sort of roam. I don't know what we'll settle on.
The possibilities, right?
But the answer is we'll do it. I think you have to be a little gentle because, you know, the minimum buy-in on the figure was like $40, right?
Sure. Right.
And then depending on whether you wanted to buy the 3-packs or then people were saying, can I buy more? And so we did these other sort of multiples that you could do. I think the average buy right now is $140, although that includes shipping.
Right.
So, you know, like I said, to me, it's surprising how much people are willing to put down, right? They're begging me, Todd, you need to give us the chance to be able to buy multiples. And I'm like, that would be taking more of your money. Because they do all these things too. I don't know if you know that much about crowdfunding, I don't even know if it's specific to Kickstarter, but they do what they call stretch goals, right?
Right.
Yeah. Goals are if we're at 100,000, if we can get to 200,000, we'll give you this. So they're basically putting a carrot out there. I'm the opposite. I get to like 99,000 and a half, and I go, if we can get to 100,000, which is 500 from now, which is basically by the time I upload this video, we're going to be there, right? I think I put up 2 or 3 videos. We were already past the goal, right? Because it was basically me saying thank you, right? I don't want any more of your money. I don't want you to have to buy more to get it. I'm saying you've crossed a mile marker for me. I'm going to give you something. Oh, you crossed another mile marker? I'm going to give you something. And at no point do you have to buy more to get it. I'm saying that as we started, I think we started $1 million. I started sort of throwing stuff in there. You get these for free. You get these for free. You get these for free. You don't have to buy any more. You don't have to change your pledge. You don't have to back anything else. All you have to do is just sit back and do nothing, and you're going to get all this stuff as a thank you from me for you guys just being crazy for even giving me this much money to start with. So and it's weird because some people are like, why don't you do stretch goals, right? It's like, because I'm giving it to you for free, so you don't have to spend money. But they've been trained a certain way, so it's sort of fun to watch it.
Right.
But I'm doing it. I think I even started taking the word stretch goal away because it was confusing people. I'm now calling it like free upgrades.
Gotcha. Yeah, and you've mentioned it, but you've added a lot of extras at this point, right? Can you tell us what some of those are, just for anybody that may not be paying attention to it?
Well, what I'm about to mention isn't inclusive of every figure. It depends on what figure you're buying or what level. But essentially, there's 4 items you can buy. Right? You can buy a classic Spawn, you can buy a modern Spawn, you can buy what I call artist-proof Spawn, and then you can buy a 3-pack that includes all 3 of them. Right? I wanted to keep it fairly simple. Boom, done. And then, so within the confines of that, we did things like instead of rubber chains, we're going to swap those out to steel. Because I think that anytime you can put any kind of textures and different kind of materials, I think it's always fun. We swapped out the neck chain. We're going to give them a neck chain. All the figures came originally with 1 head. We've added an extra head to each one of them. All the figures are going to come with 2 extra sets of hands. At the beginning, they were coming with none. So you're going to get one that's like a pair of fists, and the other ones are like, holding guns or holding weapon hands.
Sure.
I swapped out. They were all coming with the same weapon, so I've now swapped them out so they're all having exclusive weapons.
Cool.
All different. Two of them will be having guns. One will be having a big ass sword. We just announced at the 2 million that we're going to do some attachable, what I call necroplasm energy. So it looks like he's casting a spell. And if you buy the 3-pack, you'll get 3 different versions of that. One of the heads was unpainted. We ended up painting that head. I know, and there's still some that still come. But I know I'm forgetting some. I don't have my list in front of me, but it was, if you go to the website and you sort of look at the updates and or the videos, I walk through all of them. But it's just my way of saying, hey, here's just a little bit more for what you already were buying at $40, and so I'm gonna give you more. And the thing is too, it's interesting to me. It depends on how you look at the value of it. So I'll tell you how I look at some of the value of it. So let's say you went to the tier, it's like 40 to get the figure, and it's 80 if you want it autographed. So, I just did a big sort of CGC signing, and people were paying $50 for the autograph, right? So if you got $80, and if you're saying, hey, the going price is 50 just for the autograph, so now you're down to 30. Then it comes with an exclusive comic, right? So at New York Comic Con,
right,
and at New York San Diego Comic Con, we sell those for $20 to $25, right? So there's $20, $25.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're up to $75. Then it comes in like a resealable package that's in a box, that's in another box that has a slipcover, and it's going to be really big and really elegant and really sort of sophisticated. So the packaging's like $10, right? So there's $85. I'm asking for $80, and if you do that, I'll throw in a free figure. I haven't even got to the figure yet. That's just between the box and the comic book and the signature on the open market. That's $85, right? You give me $5 off, I'll throw in a figure for you. I'll throw in an action figure for you that has all of this shit that goes with it. So, I think it's a value. So, and so far, we're going to set a record for backers. So do they. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's really cool to see the interest in it. It's awesome to see the excitement for Spawn. And like you said, you've thrown in so much extra free stuff at this point. It's really cool to see how this is evolving. Yeah. So yeah, you kind of even talked about some of those other lines like dragons and movie maniacs and stuff like that. So that's all on the table for possibilities in the future.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think you guys talked about that a little bit.
That was part of the whole Masterworks thought process, the whole, crowdfunding, just saying, can we get back to doing some of the stuff that we did when we first started this company? called McFarlane Toys, right? Is there? How do we get there? Because the sad fact is that a lot of the places we used to sell to don't exist, right? KB
Sure.
Toys, Babbage's, Tower Records, Virgin Records, all these stores we used to sell. We used to come up with crazy stuff: the Tortured Souls, the Twisted Oz, the Twisted Christmas, all this crazy stuff, right? All the movie
Right.
maniacs, whatever. Like those stores would take it because all they had to do was say Walmart and Target won't take it, and they would go because they didn't want to compete. They didn't want to compete with them. So they said we'll take it, but they went out of business, and it was frustrating. And that happened during the stock market collapse and some of the stuff that was happening in the .com collapse and stuff. So it became frustrating that all the things that sort of put us on the map, we've had to gravitate a little bit away from, right? And so now with the internet and what we can do, and we could have done this. I could have done this 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, but I just been distracted. But now we're here. Now it's like, yeah, we can. For some of you that remember the early days of McFarlane and what we stood for, we can go back. We can deliver some of that geeky, cool monster stuff to you again. So.
Yeah. That's really exciting. That's
Yeah.
awesome. And I definitely think that that's kind of a driving force behind everybody's excitement with the Spawn figure here too. So that's great. And so there's a few days left on this. I think we said we're in the last week or so. So people will still have a chance to go check it out when this interview goes up. If you haven't already, make sure you do that. Cause like Todd said, everything's listed right there. You can see everything that comes with the figures and you can get yourself a brand new Spawn figure. It's awesome.
Yeah, lots of articulation. I mean, I do lots of videos, right? And we're locked in the house, so they're low production value. But we got our first
Sure.
we got our first prototype in work in progress from the factory. So before the campaign ended, people can actually see close to what it is they're going to be getting. I think the last one I did, I showed them how the cape works and how big the cape is and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, I saw that. That's awesome.
And then probably like I said, the next couple moves will be upgrades in the comic book. It's stuff like maybe foil covers and things like that to just make those even more elegant when they get them. And then we'll be done here pretty soon. And then it's time to actually put it all together and deliver on our promise. So.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, Todd, I think that is all of the questions that I had specifically. Was there anything else that you wanted to add before we end off today?
No, I what I will say, Dan, is I will tip my hat to people like you that I think are delivering a service and a value to what's happening to the world right now. One of the things, my biggest fear is us disengaging from geekdom and some of the hobbies we have. And
for sure.
TV goes down and comics go down and whatever. Like we need to interact. I mean, obviously we can't do it physically in most cases now, but this thing called the internet, shows like that you do and other people, I think are tremendous assets right now, tremendous values to keeping a pipeline for fans still to keep their geek on, myself included, right? I need it. I need it in my life, right? I can't turn that piece off. And so whether that's, watching every rerun of something we got on Netflix, although again, there's no new movies to go to, right? We were used to we're creatures of habit.
Right.
We can't go to the theaters. That was part of the geek. We can't go and buy all those toys because they're not letting us go in as many stores. We can't get our comic book because they're not letting us go into the so we still, but we're still the geek doesn't leave our DNA, and so I think it's good at any level. I don't care whether it's 1 million viewers or it's 10 viewers. Anybody that's still keeping fandom alive at any level, I think is awesome. So I appreciate what you're doing and people like you.
Oh man, of course. I love doing it. And of course, getting to interact with folks like you. You spend a lot of time engaging directly with the fans of your product. And I think that is awesome also. So thank you very much for doing that.
Dan, I'm going to try and take a page out of your book here. We're trying to set up a way that I can sort of open up the phone lines, if you will.
Oh, nice.
And just have people sort of call in and answer their questions and just interact and basically do a social distancing conversation I would have if I was at the convention, right? So
sure.
The convention. So now we just need to, if we can't go to the convention, then maybe the convention needs to come to us, right? So
there you go. That's what we're doing.
Some people are doing things like that, but I want to get it, not that I'm just talking, you know, again, having a way that I can actually get people, the fans, to phone in like a true radio show and have their questions and just have a conversation with them. So
that's awesome. That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
All right, Todd. Well, hey, thank you again so much for joining us. This has been really fun. I think there's a lot of great information here for the fans. So hopefully everybody enjoyed this.
All right. Appreciate your time today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks a lot, Todd. Have a good one.
Be good to everybody.